all disciplines, you got MVPs. You know, whether you're talking about athletics, whether you're talking about politically, whether you're talking about education, or whether you're talking about business. I mean, the reason the term MVP, most valuable player, exists is because oftentimes there are individuals who stand out head and shoulders above others. And today, I have got with me an MVP as it relates to community relations, as it relates to community initiatives, as it relates to grassroots efforts to make improvements to the community, as it relates to fighting and advocating for people to get what they deserve. And that MVP in the area of community development and neighborhood development and motivating people and as it relates to having a vision uh, is none other than Reverend Pharrell Malone. Reverend Pharrell Malone. And we're going to talk about all of these things that he has done and are going to do now. Let me tell you why he's an MVP. You got people locally, you know, who are doing phenomenal jobs in their respective communities, but he's an MVP as it relates to community development and organization because he ain't just local. He's doing it all over the state and in some instances all over the country. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. And as I said, our guest today is Reverend Pharrell Malone. There must have been some circumstances that gave Reverend Pharrell Malone the experiences that caused him to now be an MVP. You know, I don't know whether he was playing sandlot baseball or whether he was playing in the recreation park, but something happened in his life. And then I'm taking a little time to say this because you just don't rise to be an MVP without having accomplished something that's very, very important. And the areas that I mentioned heretofore uh, throughout his life, and particularly of late, then Reverend Malone has risen to the position of MVP. So how you doing, man?
I'm blessed, Mr. Habersham. How are you doing? So honored to be with such an icon as you, full of wisdom and awesome history. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's go back. Let's go back to the Sandlot years, you know, because I mean, seriously, you're so. I mean, in order to have the kind of vision, you know, some people say I want the vision to I want to stand out in high school. Some people say college. Some people say the pros. You know, some people say I want to be international. But early on, what were the factors that kind of influenced your rise to where you are now?
Well, I do believe that God places us in families that are positioned to push you to your purpose. And my father was that man, Reverend John S. Malone. He was a strong leader, strong civil rights leader, worked hand in hand, and my mother was right there by his side. So our family, we were trained to stand. We were trained to represent those, the least, the less, and the lost. We were encouraged by example to be a voice to the voiceless. And so through that process, and then I learned a lot of, I tell folk, I don't know whether I'm a prototype of Joshua, Joseph, Jesus, or a Job. When I was a young kid around 7 years old, I'm the youngest of six. My siblings buried me in the yard with my head sticking out of the sand. So I felt that was my Joseph experience. I've had some good days and some bad days, as the song said. I've had some hills to climb. So that's my Job day. And of course, I've sometimes been nailed to a cross. So that's my Jesus day. But also my calling and ministry came out of, was confirmed in the book of Joshua. And the blessing that I have is everywhere I've gone, I've followed a Moses. I followed my father, who was a Moses. I followed the Reverend Ariel Freeman in Americas at Bethesda Baptist Church, who was a Moses. I was the first executive director of Corning Partners, Black executive director of Corning Partners with the Birth Child for Habitat for Humanity. I followed Clarence Jordan, who was a Moses. I came back home to Waycross and followed Reverend Arnold McKinney, and he was a Moses. Reverend Cameron Alexander, who was one of my mentors, was a Moses. So I worked in Joshua roles pretty well.
That's very, very outstanding. Now, so what kind of, we're gonna get to the tour that you're doing with the 3Vs,
Yes, sir.
Vision, vaccine, and
Voters.
voters.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're gonna really spend some time in this next segment talking about that, but just talk about your experience as it relates to community development, community improvement, civil rights organization. What associations have you been connected to and organizations, and what kind of experiences have you had over the years in working in community build up and community development and giving power to the powerless and strength to the weak?
I think what goes back to a few things. Number one, I was a part of the NAACP youth branch in Waycross. And that youth branch taught us basics, Robert's Rules of Order, leadership skills. I remember going to youth conventions over in Jekyll Island where they taught us, and I think it's crucial that we teach our young people what to do and how to operate. I actually became the president after I came back from college. I became the president of the local NAACP in Waycross, Ware County. And through that, I remember an instance that kind of pushed us to the point of standing even much greater, calling in the United States Department of Justice. After I got back home, myself and former Mayor John Fluker pushed the city and the county to do a Martin Luther King Day. This was in 1985 when I graduated. So 1986, we had the city and the county and the City Board of Education to declare Martin Luther King Day. The county board, which was predominantly white, did not do so. So as a result, after the holiday, because a few Black kids that went to the county schools did not go to school that day, the next day, in 1986, the bus driver made them sit at the back of the bus. And of course, that led us to a point of direct protest. But I found out that early on that we need to negotiate solutions. The young folk today, who I think are doing awesome and excited about what they're doing, they didn't recognize that the march was the last thing we did. We negotiated. We brought in, the march was always our ace to force people into doing that which they were reluctant to getting done. So we literally brought in Mr. Ozell Sutton, who was president of my general counsel of my fraternity at the point. He was at the Justice Department, and we learned how to work with the newspapers, work with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and flow down through the Associated Press. And within 24 hours, there were 47 news outlets in Waycross, Georgia, which caused there to be a great concern. And we had somebody from the Justice Department who was walking with us. We had 3 Black attorneys there in Waycross, and we joined together. I was president of NAACP. John Fluker was president of the Black Action Committee, and then Mr. L. Ransom was president of the Keystone Voters and Civic League. And we work together as a unit, along with the pastors. You cannot be a solo person. You need to work together as a community. And we were able to push to the point that the Justice Department sent a plane load of 6 attorneys to Waycross. They investigated the County Board of Education, cited them for 6 counts of discrimination, gave them 6 months to change or they will withdraw all federal funding.
Wow.
At that point, it put us at a different mantle of respectability, because yes, we could have marched, we could have tore the school down, but we utilized their system to make it happen. We had a problem with the cable company, and rather than initially fighting them, I went directly to Benjamin Hooks, who was over the NAACP at the time and on the Federal Communications Commission. And we were able to begin to make things happen. We in college, I was blessed to, of course, I'm president of my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, but I was a part of the Afro-American Society. I became the president. And there was a lady there in the governor's office named Dolores Pickett, who was called down to Troy to do to judge a pageant. So they interviewed him that morning, but they needed somebody to entertain her the day. And so the president of the college called me and asked me if I would give Dolores Pickett, who is the executive assistant to the governor of Alabama, I had the entire day with her. So I took her to our frat house and showed her the entire campus. And she told me that next day, she said, I don't think that this will be the last time I'll see you. When she came to work with us on our Black History program, she bought a gentleman that became my mentor. His name was Dr. E.D. Nixon, Edgar Nixon, out of Montgomery, Alabama, the man who actually planned the Montgomery bus boycott, the man who Rosa Parks called to get her out of jail. Martin Luther King had only been in Montgomery for 6 months when Rosa Parks. Mr. Nixon literally is the one who planned the Montgomery bus boycott, and Mr. Nixon was also the one that challenged Dr. King to become the head of the Montgomery Improvement Association. He ran for mayor, he ran for commissioner in Montgomery in 1928. So he literally became a mentor of mine. There was a movie on him called The Forgotten Hero, because in the midst of everything that happened, nobody really acknowledged that he was the one that put everything in place. As a result, I was so blessed because he reminded me so much of my father, to spend my last college year spending time with him 3 to 4 days a week, driving from Troy, going to Montgomery to pick him up. And he enlightened me on some awesomely important things. He was the assistant president of the Pullman Porters Union under A. Philip Randolph. And they're the ones who planned the March on Washington. It was literally phenomenal. And I was truly blessed. I've been blessed, like my father, Dr. E.D. Nixon, the legacy of Clarence Jordan, Reverend Cameron Alexander, Reverend Arnold McKinney, Reverend H.B. Johnson out of Albany were the ones that saw something in this. Of course, I was a little guy at the time, Mr. Habersham, but they saw something this little. Matter of fact, my pastor said, Reverend McKinney said, and of course, Reverend J.W. Dixon, who was my pastor, Reverend McKinney said, you so crazy until we got to keep our hands on you so you don't do nothing crazier.
Yeah. Outstanding, outstanding. Okay, well then we can move forward, fast forward to the present day. You got a phenomenal initiative going on. Before you talk about that, and we don't have too much time, talk a little bit about Fresh. You're doing so many things with Fresh.
Well, Fresh is it's all under the umbrella of the Joshua Project. The Joshua Project is our nonprofit, and Fresh is the executive arm of the Joshua Project. Fresh is an acronym that stands for Facilitating Restoration for Equitable and Sustainable Healthy Communities. My father taught me something that blew me away back in the day. He was telling me about urban removal. And I said, Dad, no, that's urban renewal. He said, no, no, son, that's urban removal. And he died in 79. I was 17 years old. And I was selected to be a fellow for the Bank of America Leadership Development Training Institute in 1999 and 2000, where we spent 8 weeks of intensive study in community economic development. And what happened there is they did a 2-day session on urban removal and what the plan was and how the interstates came down the heart of our communities, how urban removal displaced our communities. Because when our communities were strong, we had the ability to pass the Voting Rights Act and to pass the voting legislation and the non-discrimination pieces. They had to separate us. And it was by design that they separated us. I tell folks, I'm not necessarily, I'm not racist because you can't be racist. I think all of us have a little degree of prejudice because it's how we prejudge. But the essence of it is that I think that one of the worst things that happened to us as a people, and I want people to hear this clearly all the way through, is integration. Because we never integrated. If you want to integrate, you take a red, black, and green rope, you plait them together, and as you look at the plait, you'll see equally red, black, and green. Reason we did not integrate, we assimilated. We gave up our schools. We gave up our businesses. We gave up our culture to a culture that is not ours. So what Fresh is designed for is to facilitate, to be a catalyst, to facilitate restoration for equitable and sustainable, healthy communities. In every area, what we call the 8 pinnacles of liberation, we need to focus on education. We need to focus on arts and entertainment and media and government and family and business and health and reclaiming our people, reclaiming our neighborhood, our reparations, our reentry. We need to be a catalyst by which there is a fresh approach to our community.
Yes, outstanding. Okay, moving right along. So talk about the 3Vs Project. I guess that's what you call it, with your tools and going through communities and having sessions, vision, vaccine, and voters.
Yes, sir.
You know, but I'm gonna call it you know. I like it. So talk a little bit about that.
What we put first was voters, because in a democracy, we must have and maintain the right to vote. And we're going to participate. So we have to preserve that right. We knew that there was going to be backlash after January 5th. But let me explain something to you about us as a people. We've never let a law keep us down. We communicated from plantation to plantation by the beat of the drum.
Yes, sir.
And it took the whites, the slave masters, 100 years to figure out we were talking to each other by the beat of the drum. And in 1763, they outlawed the beating of the drum. So in every instance, even after the Emancipation Proclamation, Macon, Georgia, right there, produced the first Black congressman, right there out of Macon. And they came back as a result of that and instituted Jim Crow laws because they could not have that. So it is nothing strange that after a major success, that we come to the fact that they are creating laws to suppress us. So voting is essential. So therefore, on the tour, we're going to teach people how to plan their vote, how to make sure they're in line and make sure they're checking so that when it's time to come out and vote, they're in place. We got the COVID-19 piece going on with the vaccines. A lot of our community are not with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to take into the heart of the community. We're going to educate people on the vaccine. And then it's totally left up to them as to whether they will take it or receive the vaccine. And at that point, we'll have the vaccines on site. And then we're dealing with vision, voters, vaccines, and visions. The visions deal directly with us reestablishing and reimagining our communities. We're right at the time where they burned down Tulsa, Oklahoma. All of that. We're right in this time frame. We have to reimagine community. And all of those 8 areas that I talked about, we got to reimagine community. And when we put a constructive, strategic plan together for our community, it is then at that point that we're able to access the money that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and the Congress have put in place. That is money through the American Rescue Plan. That money, there is a specific executive order 13985, that specifically says that there must be a set aside for the Black community so that the Black community is rebuilt and reestablished. Those who have been marginalized, underserved, and systematically racially shut out. So we want to make sure that we have town halls. And in addition to this, we want to hold local people accountable to make sure that they are administering this money correctly. I told my city commission, county commission, and Board of Education, as Mordecai told Esther, you are where you are right now for such a time as this. We have now the opportunity to rebuild, to redevelop, and to reestablish our community by facilitating restoration for equitable and sustainable, healthy communities.
That's outstanding. So you've got these tour plans. You're gonna go from city to city.
Yes, sir.
Talk
going to
talk first about Macon. I don't think we're gonna run out of time, but talk first, and then we're gonna run this show before and after you come, because this information is relevant, from now on. 3V, It's relevant from,
well, what we're working with, we're going to be in 40 plus cities. We'll start out next week to launch in Waycross. We'll go to Douglas and Fitzgerald, Tifton, and Valdosta. The following week, we're going to end up in Macon on the 9th. We'll be at Fort Valley and Macon and Americus. And I know in Macon, we're specifically working with our Pastor Paul Little and Miss Shanita Davis and Mrs. Fanika Miller with Black Voters Matter. We're working with them because they're going to work on some expungement, making sure that people's records are cleared, making sure people are qualified and ready to vote. So we're excited about being in the heart of Georgia. We're excited about being in Macon, Georgia, to be a part of this process.
Okay, now, how can a person learn more, about the general effort that you're doing? Because there will be some people who are not from Macon, who are in other communities. You'll be happy to know that took me 12 years, but now I'm gonna be podcasting,
Amen.
So I'm gonna be podcasting. So how can people find out? How can they find out about your efforts? How can they support your effort? And then what else do you need as it relates to assistance, education, or what have you?
We need local hosts. We have, if you can go to ourfreshcommunities.com, that is our website, and it has the entire brochure that lines out which cities we're coming into. It also lets them know what we need from our local hosts and how they can develop the site there. And then it also has a donate button on one of those pages. If you want to donate and be a part of the process to help us make sure it happens, we want to do that. Fort Valley State University, oh my goodness, they are an awesome partner in helping. We launch Fresh Communities at Fort Valley State University, and they have been a major part of what we're doing. We're taking the Mobile Tractor Trailer Center. We're going to be able to give insurance, provide insurance for people all across the state. There are 2 million uninsured in Georgia through the Affordable Care Act and the American Rescue Plan. Because the charges have been so drastically dropped, many people can get insurance for free. My son, who has a wife and 2 children, we signed him up yesterday. He has a plan that has no deductible, no copays, and he pays $35.98 a month.
Wow.
With dental and vision. What we want people to know is that now is the time to take advantage of the things that are available. You know what? After the flood of Noah, there was a whole new bright, shiny world to go into. After COVID, there are some benefits and some opportunities that have not been made available before. Also, there's a special an election period for Medicare Advantage. People who need more from their Medicare, they're able. We represent about 6 or 7 companies that we're going to be able to give dental. We're going to be able to give vision. We're going to be able to give expanded services, rides, silver sneakers, and a whole lot of other things that are now available to people. And I think the whole purpose of the tour is that we need to take the services to the heart of the community. Because I know that people will do better if they knew better.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So with all this information as it relates to the insurance and Medicare and what have you, is that available on the website? Because, you know, we have to tell our people where to go. We got, in many instances, we got to hold their hands.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
they got good intentions, but we need to make sure that they understand.
We just got the Pearl on yesterday. It will go on the website tonight. That if somebody wants the insurance, they can simply hit that and it'll open up the application and they can get it before I get to make it.
Outstanding. Well, this is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, you know, having the great opportunity. You know, what y'all don't know is I just met Reverend Malone a couple of weeks ago, but I felt like, you know, we feel like we've known each other all our lives.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know which one of those characters in the Bible, you know, just as long as I'm not Judas, you know, I'll be all right. But I want to thank you, man.
Thank you.
And that's why I call you an MVP, you know, because you playing the game, you playing it well, and you scoring high, and you creating records, and you making a difference, and you generating championships, and you generating champions.
Praise God. Praise God.
And that's why you the MVP. You know, I wish Godspeed to you. Keep on doing what you're doing. And those of you out there, you know, everybody can play a role in making yourself better and our community better. You know, it takes a village. When I win, you win. When you win, I win. And when they win, everybody wins.
Amen.
That's what we ought to be about. And this, I've just interviewed Reverend for real. I never seen it spelled like that before, but I'm on.
There's a story behind that. Story. I'll tell it.
I know it's a story. I know it's a story, but it's a Reverend for real Malone. His organization is Fresh, and the website is fresh.org.
Well, ourfreshcommunities.com.
Ourfreshcommunity.com. Is there a space on there where they can send you a note, Reverend?
Yes, sir. There should be a place on there. If not, I'll make sure my son gets it on there. But I think it's on there. So my email address is on there, and they can send it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations, man. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You're doing an outstanding job. You're doing an outstanding job. Keep it up. And I'm encouraging everybody, you know, ourfreshcommunity.com. Yes, sir. Go to that website, become familiar with it, enlist for the services that you need, and support the organization in any way that you can. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex C. Habersham. Having interviewed Reverend Rell Malone. We're going to hear that story about that name later on. Have a great day. Thank you, Doc.
God bless. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.